Alright, so open up your third person character. And this is all the stuff that just comes with it out of the box. What we want to do is go to our viewport here, select our camera boom, and mess with the length. We want to know where we want it to be when we're starting the game. So 300 is pretty close, but I like it at 600. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to add an offset for the camera. So if I press 100 here, set it to 100, we're going to get a nice kind of overhead view for our character. Feels nice. And then what we want to do is we're going to go to event graph. We're going to create kind of a aim down sight zoom effect for, say, like a third person shooter. So what we want to do is get the right mouse button, and you can always plug this into your input once you figured it out. And when it's pressed, we want it to play a timeline. So we're going to add a timeline, and we'll just call it aim down timeline. And we're going to leave some room here because we're going to come and tinker with this in a little bit. But when we press it, we want it to play. When we release it, we want it to reverse through this timeline. And then what we want it to update is set target arm, set target arm length. Might have to uncheck the context sensitive box here. And then what we'll want to do after that is set socket offset for a spring arm component. Okay, and this is going to reference this socket offset, this vector here. I'm going to go ahead and break it right now so we can test one thing at a time. But we need to be able to plug in a variable here. So we're going to open up the aim down timeline. And up here, this is the length of the entire timeline. So we're going to set it to 0.1 second. This is going to be a quick zoom. And then we're going to add a float track, and we'll call it arm length. Oops, if I could spell. All right. And you can name this whatever you want. It doesn't matter. So at the beginning, which is 0, we want the arm length to be 600, what we have already plugged in. It's the base state of our arm length. So it's thrown the little curve we just added all the way up to 600. So we need to add a second one at the end of the timeline. So at 0.1, we want to say 200. We'll compile that, and then we go to our event graph. You'll notice we have arm length here. Plug it right in here. And we need to get a reference from here for camera boom arm. Plug that in. Go ahead and plug it in over here too. And when you compile, you should get a nice zoom transition. All right, now but we want to add an over-the-shoulder effect. We want to move the camera to the over-shoulder position. So that's where this socket offset comes in. So just like this one, we're going to have to add a variable, but this time we're adding a vector track, and we'll call this camera offset. And we'll scroll down here, and we're going to right-click, add key and value to all curves. And you can just kind of split these up to get them in a better position. And the same thing we did before. We know we start at 100 on the Z. So we're going to go to time 0, value 100. He's going to go up there and disappear. And these two we know are set to 0. All right, and then you're going to do the same thing. Add key and value to curve. So now we're getting our curve here. All the transitions between the 2 points. So the big one was the Z. Set to 0.1 for the end of our length. And then the value was at 100. We'll set it down to 60. And then the Y, we want it to be 0.1. We're going to offset it over by 60 points. We want it to be over the right shoulder a little bit. And then X is going to stay the same. Okay. And then when you compile that, go back to your event graph, plug that in, compile, save, and now you get a nice over-the-shoulder look. Now, say we want to adjust the time frame in which this happens. What you could do is go play rate timeline. You have to turn off context and get set play rate. Go ahead and copy and paste it. We're going to do it between the release and the play, so we get two different speeds for this timeline. So this new rate is not going to be a new time. It's going to be a multiplication of the current time set in your timeline. So if you do set play rate 1, it'll play at the rate set in the timeline. 1 times the timeline's time. So we want it to be fast on the zoom and slow on the zoom out. So if we compile that, we're going to have to make a reference to this timeline, but they're always saved in the blueprint. So if you go and just type in aim down, you can get your aim down timeline right there. Plug those two in, compile, and then now get a quick zoom, slow zoom out, and that's it.